I sat across from Frank Hollis, the CEO of the tech startup I'd poured the last 5 years of my life into. He was leaning back in his chair, looking like this was just another Tuesday. His fingers were steepled together, eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. I'd designed the architecture when we were scraping by. I'd solved impossible technical issues. I'd put in countless hours, blood, sweat, and whatever was left of my energy. And now this. "Sorry, Mike," he muttered, barely glancing up. "But you're not the direction we're headed anymore." The words hit like a punch in the gut, but I didn't let it show. My pulse raced, but I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of seeing me crack. I stood, my chair scraping across the floor. "Thanks for the opportunity," I said, stiff as hell. I walked out without looking back. The open office floor buzzed with the noise of younger developers, their heads down, working on my code. They didn't know what was coming. They didn't know I'd built this thing from the ground up, and now I was getting kicked to the curb like an outdated feature. I gathered my things, my coffee mug, a couple of old photos, a plant I hadn't watered in months, and headed toward the exit. There it was, the quiet realization. I'd built this company, but I was disposable, just another cog. I stepped into the parking lot, my heart still thudding in my chest, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my attorney, Stacy Carver. "They're planning something big. Let's talk." I froze. Whatever they were scheming, it wasn't over yet. I didn't turn on the radio for the drive home. My hands gripped the wheel too tight, my mind running through Frank's words like a loop that wouldn't stop. "Nobody will remember your contributions." I made it home in one piece but barely felt anything. The house felt empty in the way it does when you know something's broken but can't figure out what. I threw my keys on the counter, walked to my desk, and sat down. I opened my laptop, staring at the screen for a minute before diving into the files I'd kept for years. Architecture diagrams, version logs, emails, proof. The emails with Frank from when I first pitched the authentication system, showing it was my idea long before they hired me. The blueprint I'd designed when the company was barely making it. The one that had kept us afloat. All of it was there. All of it was mine. They'd never seen me coming. I picked up my phone and dialed Stacy Carver, my lawyer. She'd been handling my contracts for years, and I'd trusted her to keep an eye on the stuff that mattered, like the intellectual property they might try to steal. "Stacy, it's Mike," I said when she picked up. "They let me go, and I think they're trying to screw me on the way out." There was a pause on the other end, then she responded, calm as usual. "I've been keeping track. The key is the intellectual property. If you did any of this work before they hired you, that's yours. And they don't have a clue you've kept everything." A weight lifted off my chest. There was something to hold on to. I wasn't just another fired employee. I had leverage. "I need you to help me gather everything," I said. "They're gonna come crawling, and when they do, I want to be ready." "I'll send you a draft of the IP claim," she replied. "If you play this right, you could freeze their whole operation. It's a risky move, but we've got the evidence." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. The plan was taking shape. I'd always played by the rules, until now. After we hung up, I spent the next few hours pulling everything together. The logs, the email threads, the diagrams. It was a solid case. I wasn't just another cog they could toss aside. I was the reason they'd gotten anywhere. Without me, they wouldn't have made it past the prototype phase. By the time I wrapped everything up, Stacy sent over the draft. I read it over, each word like a cold shot of adrenaline. If I followed through, if I executed this, I could destroy them. I'd built this company. They'd never even realized they were standing on the foundation I'd laid. And now, it was time to remind them who'd really made it work. I put my phone down and stared at the draft for a long time. It was time to make sure Frank and the rest of them knew exactly who they were dealing with. 2 weeks had passed since they let me go, and I'd been keeping busy consulting with a few firms. But nothing serious had come of it. It wasn't like I was in a rush. I had time to figure things out. I was sitting at a cafe, nursing a lukewarm coffee, scrolling through job listings that all felt like a step backward, when my phone buzzed. Kevin Reed, the CTO at the company I used to work for. I didn't pick up immediately. I knew what this was. They were already desperate. I answered on the second ring. "Yeah?" "Hey, Mike," Kevin said, sounding almost too friendly, like he was trying a little too hard. "The team's got some questions about the system you built for us. Can we talk for a bit? We'll pay you for the consultation." I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch out between us. He wasn't getting off that easy. Consultation? Kevin, you guys let me go. Why don't you ask Troy? There was a slight hesitation on his end, and I could hear the nerves creep into his voice. Well, yeah, but Troy's not exactly getting it. We're kind of in a tight spot here. I let him squirm for a second, the satisfaction building. They let me go, but they couldn't even fix their own mess without me. I didn't feel bad about it, not even a little. Finally, I spoke. I'm not interested. Best of luck with that. The silence on the other end was palpable. Kevin stammered something about maybe catching up down the road, but I cut him off. Goodbye, Kevin. I hung up, set the phone down on the table, and leaned back in my chair. I could feel the weight in my chest easing a little. They were already scrambling. They had no idea how bad it was going to get without me. I finished my coffee, still feeling that small satisfaction. They needed me, but I wasn't the one who was going to fix their problem. Not now. My phone buzzed again, a minute later. It was another message from Kevin. I glanced down. Double my usual hourly rate. I didn't even hesitate. They were getting desperate. I typed a quick response. Not interested. I hit send and let out a quiet breath. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about proving a point. They let me go because they thought they could do it without me. Now they were going to find out they were wrong. A few weeks passed. My phone didn't stop buzzing with emails. Kevin, Troy, even Ethan, the guy I'd mentored for years. They were all asking for help. Ethan's email was the first to really catch my eye. Mike, I don't know how to say this, but things are falling apart here. They don't get the authentication system. Clients are pissed. I wasn't surprised. Frank had always been more interested in pushing deadlines and ignoring the technical debt than actually getting things right. He took credit for every success, but none of the failures were ever his fault. I'd known something like this was coming, just hadn't expected it to unravel this quickly. Then came another message from Kevin, a little more desperate this time. If you can just come in for a day and help with the system, we can pay you more than your last salary. It was tempting. They were offering more money than I'd ever made with them, and I could walk in, fix the mess, and walk back out. But that's not what I wanted. A paycheck? Sure, but I had a bigger plan. I didn't want to fix their problem for them. I wanted control. I wanted them to understand that without me, they were nothing. I wasn't about to give in just yet. A couple of days passed. I let their desperation build. Kevin and Troy kept emailing, but I stayed quiet. Let them sweat it out. Let them realize the hole they'd dug. Then came the kicker. A message from the board. They wanted to schedule a crisis meeting. I read the email twice, trying to suppress the grin that wanted to spread across my face. They were running out of options. They needed me. I wasn't just a disgruntled ex-employee anymore. I was their last hope. This wasn't about helping them save face or fixing their damn system. This was about me making sure that when they came crawling back, it wasn't on their terms. I stared at my phone for a moment longer, the weight of it sinking in. They were in full panic mode now, and the real power was in my hands. But I wasn't ready to help them just yet. I'd let them sweat it out a little longer. It wasn't long before Frank called. His name flashed across the screen, and I didn't hesitate to pick up. Mike, I think we got off on the wrong foot, Frank's voice came through, the kind of smooth that tried too hard. Let's talk this through. The board's reconsidering the whole thing. I could already hear where this was headed. He wasn't calling to apologize. He was calling because they were losing control, and they needed someone to bail them out. I let him talk for a moment, his words carefully rehearsed. We'll pay you well, Mike. 6 figures for a couple weeks of work. Just help us transition. We really need you? I leaned back in my chair, taking my time. I'd heard this line before, back when they'd promised me the world and turned on me without a second thought. I wasn't buying it now. No, Frank, I said, letting the weight of those words sink in. I'm not interested. Best of luck with everything. There was a long pause on the other end. It stretched, filling the air between us like a thick fog. I could hear Frank's breath, steady but strained. He never expected me to walk away like this. Finally, his voice cracked. You know this is the end of the line for us, right? I didn't say anything at first. I just let him stew, the silence hanging heavy between us. Goodbye, Frank, I said, hanging up before he could say another word. The truth was, they'd never seen me coming. They thought they could just toss me aside like some outdated code, but I was the one in control now. They'd come back. I knew it, but it wouldn't be on their terms anymore. 3 weeks after Frank's call, Olivia Harris, the lead investor, reached out. I wasn't expecting it, but when her name appeared on my phone, I answered. "Mike," she said, her voice steady, like she was getting straight to the point. "Can we meet in person? It's important." I agreed without hesitation, curious to see where this would go. An hour later, she showed up at my house, looking sharp in a dark blazer, the kind of business attire that made it clear she meant business. She didn't waste any time. "Mike, I need your help," she started, setting her briefcase down and locking eyes with me. "Frank's been taking credit for your work all along, and now it's all falling apart." I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to gloat, but the other part was more intrigued than I'd like to admit. She continued, voice tight with frustration. "We've realized we were misled about the company's tech leadership. Frank's vision is what we funded, but it's really your tech that's been making this whole thing work." The words hit me harder than I expected. After all the hours I'd put in, the sacrifices, the fights with Frank over technical decisions, he was the one getting the glory. I had no doubt now. They had no idea how deep they'd been lied to. "We need you to fix this," Olivia said, her eyes narrowing. "Help us make things right." I crossed my arms, weighing my options. I'd spent years working for Frank, and it felt damn good to finally hear someone else admit what I'd known all along. But what did she really want from me? Was this a last-ditch effort to salvage what was left of the company? "How are you planning to fix this?" I asked, my tone flat, still not quite trusting where this was going. She leaned forward, the fire in her eyes matching the intensity of the conversation. "We're looking at a meeting with the entire board. If you can prove your intellectual property is yours, if you can show it's your work and not Frank's, we'll make it right. We'll pay you what you're worth, and we'll set you up with the right position moving forward." I sat back in my chair, surprised but not entirely shocked. Olivia had just handed me the key to everything. Frank had lied to them, and now it was time to expose the truth. I thought about it for a moment. This wasn't just a chance to get paid for my work. This was my shot at control, at finally stepping up and claiming what I deserved. I gave Olivia a long look. "Fine," I said. "Let's do it." She smiled, relieved but still cautious. "Good. I'll arrange the meeting." As she left, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were finally shifting in my favor. Frank thought he was in charge, but he had no idea what was coming. I walked into the boardroom with Stacy by my side, ready for the showdown. The tension in the air was thick, like everyone knew something big was about to happen, but wasn't sure which way it was going to fall. Frank was sitting at the head of the table, trying to look confident. His fingers were steepled in front of him, but his eyes flickered nervously when I walked in. Olivia introduced me, her voice steady. "This is Mike, the real tech behind the company. We're here to clear up some misunderstandings." I didn't waste any time. I stood tall, pulled out the evidence, and laid it out for them. The GitHub logs, the emails, the version history. Every piece of it proved the authentication system I'd designed was mine, before I even joined the company. Frank's face turned red. His hand shot up, but it was too late. The evidence spoke for itself. He tried to deny it, of course, stammering something about how he'd guided the project. But nobody was listening to him anymore. The board members exchanged looks, their eyes shifting toward him, with a mix of confusion and doubt. Olivia took the lead. "We're offering you a CTO position, Mike," she said, her voice firm, "plus a licensing deal for your system. Your contributions will be recognized, and you'll get equity for your role." I could see the anger flare in Frank's eyes. He looked like he was about to explode, his hands balled into fists on the table. "You can't do this," he barked, his voice cracking with frustration. I didn't flinch. I kept my tone even, calm. "I'm not holding anyone hostage, Frank. I'm just making sure the truth gets out." The room was dead silent for a moment, everyone watching him. Frank's face twisted with rage as he stood up, knocking his chair back in a fury. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the room without another word. I looked at Olivia and the rest of the board, the silence hanging in the air like a charged wire. "Looks like it's over for him," I said quietly. "He never understood what made this company work." Olivia nodded, her eyes scanning the room. "We'll vote now. It's time to make things right." And just like that, Frank was gone. The investors moved quickly. They voted to remove him as CEO without hesitation, and I could feel the weight of the room shift. The board didn't even need to say it aloud. It was clear. This was my moment. I'd taken the reins, and this time, no one was going to take it from me. But I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. There were bigger moves to make, and I wasn't done yet. 3 months later, everything had changed. The company had turned around. Clients were happy, the tech was stable, and we'd actually hit the deadlines Frank had always pushed but never respected. I stood at the podium during our first major update event, looking out at the packed room. I wasn't just the tech guy behind the scenes anymore. I was leading this team, guiding them forward. Today we're rolling out our new feature, one that's going to change the way our clients manage security, I said, my voice confident, the words coming easily. The room buzzed with excitement. I could see the investors in the back, nodding with approval. I paused for a moment, feeling the weight of everything I'd fought for. Frank was out of the picture now, long gone. He'd tried to start something else, but word had spread quickly about what happened. The lies, the manipulation, the way he'd taken credit for my work. No one wanted to touch him anymore. Investors were hesitant to back him. His reputation was shot, and whatever business he'd tried to get off the ground had already folded. Word traveled fast in this industry. I pulled my phone from my pocket, a quick glance at the screen telling me everything I needed to know. An email from Frank. Just a short apology, a few words of regret. But it was too little, too late. I deleted it without even responding. I didn't need closure from him. I had something far better. Control. I was where I belonged now. This was my company, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me again. Thank you, everyone, I said, wrapping up the presentation. We're just getting started. As I stepped off the stage, a sense of accomplishment washed over me. But there was no time to rest. The road ahead was long, and I was ready to take it on. This time, I was in charge, and the rules were mine to make.